Sup gamers, Rainy Potato here with a tier list for all the Flagellant skills. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to subscribe. I post new videos every day. First up is his base attack, Punish. This skill changes on all of his paths, but in general it's a front row to front row blight attack doing medium damage and low blight. This isn't really what the Flagellant's game is all about, and this is never your main strat, but it usually goes on your bar just to have a consistent offensive maneuver, though some kits run Acid Rain in lieu of this. However, on Maniac this becomes an insane skill, offering a knockback of 2 when upgraded. All in all, it's a solid skill that rounds out a bar and not much more. Fester is the same on all paths, offering a single corpse clear while delivering a decent blight to adjacent enemies. There are better corpse clears than this and more consistent dots, so I never really find a way to put this on my bar. There's just too much to do on most flag builds, and even when you can fit it in, it's mostly just for emergencies. Certainly not trash, but definitely behind Punish and solid. Deathless is a heal. On most paths it cuts your own HP to heal another ally with no threshold, which also enables a lot of Flagellant's low HP kit, and is an insane combo with more and more. But on Scourge becomes a masterpiece, giving a massive heal to both you and an ally, and only Flagellant has to be below half health. This is an absolute staple on every Flagellant build, good enough to make Flagellant a legitimate main healer, standing toe-to-toe with the consensus best healer through most of development, the Plague Doctor. Beyond obvious OP tier selection. Endure is another skill that stays the same on every hero path. This is a pretty simple stress transfer. Flagellant removes stress on an ally and puts it on himself. In theory, this is pretty okay, since Flagellant is more okay with stress, and at least when upgraded you start reducing overall team stress, and can just focus on healing the Flagellant. This is wrong, firstly because Flagellant really only wants to be toxic in the mountain, because affinity matters before that. Second, Endure is just way too slow and abysmal action economy to want to actually put on your bar. I suppose you could argue it's there for stalling, and the Flagellant has an extensive enough healing kit that you can afford to, but he has too many skills I find compelling to want to run this outside of the mountain cultists. Unfortunate trash tier ranking. Lash's gift is a strange one. This ability is wildly different on every path. This just never gets play on Scourge or Exanimate. On Scourge it's just nothing in comparison with the rest of his kit, and on Exanimate it's rarely if ever available. Conversely, it's quite good on the other two paths, with it setting up one of Maniac's interesting combos with negative tokens and sepsis, while just being a respectable heal, and pretty strong heal and buff on Straight Wanderer, the best Lash of the pack. I can't really rate a skill great when it's entirely dead on two paths, but it's a really good ability on the two paths it works on, so I feel alright putting it atop the solid tier. Acid Rain is his back row AoE attack, like a baby plague grenade. Like Punish, it also damages yourself, which is usually what you want for Flagellant. On Exanimate, it gets an additional 2 points of blight when under half health, which is mostly irrelevant and why I don't run that path. For Maniac, you lose the dot altogether in exchange for weak, which is a pretty bad deal overall since you like the dot for checking Death's Door, but is useful exclusively in the Tangle to temper their damage and neuter the General's nuke. It's pretty situational. You usually only run one damage ability on Flagellant, so it's entirely dependent on what range you need damage at if you use this or not. I put it right behind Punish, since Punish is better for act bosses and is actually good on Maniac. More is the same on all paths. This is a 2-token taunt, and gives you a buff that for 2 turns every time you receive damage, whether from an enemy, a DOT, or from yourself, you gain a pain token, and that stacks to a max of 3. Each pain token will then heal you 10%, 15% on upgrade, at the end of the subsequent turn. This skill is what enables Flagellant to be both an elite tank and an elite healer at the same time. Most of the time, at least on Maniac and Wanderer, I open with this, eating up enemy attacks while getting my HP whittled down. Then on the next turn, you know you have your HP banked, usually 45% of upgraded, and it should be an early upgrade, which opens up your entire kit, and you also get a basically free Deathless since the pain counteracts the damage you inflict to use the ability. The survivability here is just insane. This is what you center your Flagellant around, and it justly goes atop the OP tier. Suffer is the same on all paths, increasing your DBR while removing dots on an ally, while the upgrade will remove dots on you at the end of the next turn. This is just mostly irrelevant. There are better dot removals, and you can't really waste a spot on your bar for a skill that almost never actually does anything. Put it at the bottom of the trash heap. Sepsis is the skill you build around. It changes entirely on every path, and it's quite strong on every path. For Wanderer, it acts as Exsanguinate from DD1, usable at below half health for a big heal, direct damage, and a big blight. Maniac, this is how you transfer negative tokens to an enemy, as well as a juicy heal, and you don't even need to meet the HP threshold. On Exanimate, it becomes a sort of cause of death, unfortunately with an HP threshold as well. You will eat all active blight and convert it to direct damage on an enemy, as well as heal if you're super low. And finally on Scourge, you get to use Sepsis on any blighted enemy with no other conditions, and can even maintain the blight rather than removing it if you have combo, dealing crazy damage versus bosses. This is equipped on every single Flagellant build, being your only real form of damage, except on Maniac, of course. This is what you build around on Scourge and Exanimate, and while it's not the centerpiece on Wanderer or Maniac, generally it's still something you usually use every fight, as normally your best low HP payoff. Easy OP tier, though I put it right behind Deathless because Deathless replaces a healer entirely in your lineup, making it a more versatile move than the more restrictive direct damage from Blight on Sepsis. Undying is the same on all paths, and is just a simple regen in exchange for health, where it's half the cost of Deathless. The problem here is straight HP heal is almost always better than regen, especially with dotted heroes because they can just die through regen if they're on death's door with enough dot. This does technically gain value over 3 turns for your extremely low HP heroes like Alchemist and Warlock, especially on Stygian where it's essentially a full heal, but also requires stalling which can backfire. I just normally can't fit this on my bar, even in the edge cases. There's just too much I need my Flagellant to do, but it's certainly not terrible. Bottom of solid for me. And finally we have Necrosis. This is an AoE usable against any enemy with Blight that will also heal Flagellant for 5% for every enemy hit. This is an absolute staple on Scourge and Exanimate, and with a pure Blight build like you should have with that path, you can often just be straight cleaving parties, though there is a cooldown. The only actual downside for this path is on Maniac, where it's dead unless you run a Plague Doctor, and you often run Maniac so you don't have to run a Plague Doctor. Being a staple of 2 paths is enough for me to slot this firmly in the great tier. Overall, the Flagellant has a fun and diverse kit that has near a bar full of absolutely OP abilities, and I expect a nerf in the future. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to subscribe. I post new videos every day.